But while better pricing, better stock options, more switching potential, and even details like better cable management, more space in the frame for droppers, bottles, and bigger shocks are all great. The thing that stands out most about this new fuel is the thing that matters most of all. Hey up folks, I'm Guy Kestervan, the Tester Man, and this is my first week review of Trek's all-new fuel. Multi-travel, multi-personality, all-round trail bike with a ton of incremental changes. But do they add up to a big difference on the trail? And just how good is it compared to the latest bikes in this all-encompassing exercise bike category? Well, let's do what I've been doing for nearly the past 30 years and get it onto the trails to see what it can tell us about how it rides live, and whether that makes you a fool for thinking of buying it, or whether it's the perfect fuel for stoking your riding. So, the big news here is very good news. While this bike, in its previous version, launched at 4,350 quid, this new Gen 7 Trek Fuel 8 is only £3,200. Where am I going? So, straight away, that's some really clear evidence that the bike industry is actually pulling back to more realistic costs again. And also, this new fuel really capitalizes on that 3 bikes in 1 potential that they started with the previous Fuel EX, with an EX version that I'm riding, an MX mixed wheel version, and an LX long travel version, all based on the same frame set. And it's an all new frame as well. So a much simpler structure than before in many ways, with straight seat tube now rather than the kind of split stop tube weirdness of before, which gives you a load more room for shocks, bottles, tool wraps, and anything else you want to put inside. Plus, it's got enlarged storage itself. Room for 2 proper full-size bags and an easy open storage hatch, even on this alloy version. Afternoon. Thank you very much. Cheers. And while you can see, there's a lot of movement when I'm out of the saddle. It's much more stable when you sit down. And regardless of kind of that bob that's visible, it just keeps a really good, consistent connection to the ground. That excellent traction over blocks, ruts, steps, and all sorts of jank, which is exactly what I found with my top fuel long-termer. But while that, even with the shock mod, tops out at 130mm, the standard EX has 145mm of travel, and the LX long travel has 160mm. And then the MX bike comes with 150mm of rear travel, and if you buy them as complete bikes, the forks lengths are changed accordingly. So 150, 160, 170 on the LX. So when you get to that point, you're looking at a really big bike based off this frame set. So when you consider it's designed to handle those kind of big fork loads and properly hardcore riding, it's perhaps not surprising that this is a really heavy bike for the category in the shorter travel format at 16.9 kilos, so 4.6 kilos for the aluminium frame, although that is actually lighter than the previous frame, and the carbon OCLB frame only weighs 3.3 kilos, with top of the range bikes dropping down to 14.2 kilos on the standard spec sheet. Plus, you can tweak around with your own personal builds within the Trek model range, because the Project One pick your own build program is now coming back to mountain biking on the Fuel. So, as well as some decent value stock builds, you can also pick your own bike build from a selection on the Trek website. And that also gives you colour options. The one thing they are missing is that there's no medium large size anymore. That kind of sweet spot Goldilocks that used to fit a lot of people like a glove. But they have extended the size range of each model in between. And while you definitely notice the overall weight of the bike on climbs, or if you're trying to sprint or hustle it on the flat, you've got properly steep 76.9 degree seat angle, plus the latest Eagle 70 transmission from SRAM, which is the cheapest way to get that full, totally secure shift under pressure from the T-type rear mech chain setup with its gated community cassette. So even on full grunt, you can still hit that shift button and make a clean move down to a lower gear. And that base geometry is really good too. So 64.5 degree head angle, 485mm reach on this large, and then 64.2 or 63.5 on the MX and the LX bikes. So proper stability up front for the super steep stuff. And also head tubes are high as well, 140mm on this bike, which means you don't need a huge amount of spacers or a silly Dakota Norton high-rise bar to make you feel balanced in steeper sections like that. The straight seat tube means you can get really long dropper posts into the frame too. So even the medium has a 200mm now. So again, body weight can come right down, and back ends are fully proportional as well. So 437 to 452mm on the chainstays, and 78.6 through to 76.4 on the seat angle. The only thing I would say is that 447mm back end does leave this large pretty long, at just under 1300mm in terms of wheelbase. So that's where those mullet wheel options really come in on this bike, to tucking it in a bit tighter on the steep stuff. And also filming in the steeps yesterday with Mick for NBR, I was buzzing my buttocks on the back wheel on a really deep drop off. So again, that mullet rear end is going to really help there. The only thing, it is a bit of a backward step in terms of inconvenience compared to previous Trek with its Mino link and its optional adjustable headset. Sketchy line, we'll come back to that later, is that you can only access the new wheel and geometry settings by changing linkages and the lower shock mount. But the gain with that, Trek say, is completely consistent geometry in every setting. with only those head angles changing. But while better pricing, better stock options, more switching potential, and even details like better cable management, more space in the frame for droppers, bottles, and bigger shocks are all great. The thing that stands out most about this new fuel is the thing that matters most of all, and that's the fact it just rides brilliantly now. Not only has it got 5mm more travel in this EX version, but you're working on top of a kinematic and suspension system that is just been so evolved now. It was already one of the best ways to put mountain bike wheels on the ground for maximum control and speed, but now it just seems to have stepped up an extra level. So even with this really basic Fox shock and fork setup, rhythm fork and performance float X on the rear, it just feels absolutely sublime. And the tyres, can't even remember their name, they're a kind of generic DHR butcher kind of crossover, but I don't think they're anything special. But on this bike, they feel really well sorted, and little touches like dropping those big beefy chainstays a fraction lower. So yeah, the chain does rub slightly in the 10 sprocket, just means the whole bike feels totally solid. And again, those straighter tube lines mean excellent stiffness even on a lighter frame. Just everything just feels more connected and glued even than it did before, and that's with very little playing around with it. And you've got plenty of armour and a ribbed chainstay protector to keep things quiet, plus ISCG tabs on the BB if you want to fit a full chain guide. Although I have to say, this SRAM 70 is keeping things really controlled, and I'm a big fan of the SRAM DB8 brakes as well. Big mineral oil powered stoppers that really do a good job in terms of consistent, predictable power. Proper fan of them. Remind me a lot of the old Guide RE brakes, which used to be a real budget brake win back in the day. And even on techie climbs, like here at Stainburn, it's got a really nice, easy tipping. Yes, that back end is pretty long, but the sensitive start to the stroke that you get from that 60mm shock means really buttery traction. But then they've leveled out the anti-squat slightly, so it's more consistent throughout the travel range for a really stable platform when you're getting your power down. And then that ABP concentric pivot on the rear means even when you are pulling on those DB8 brakes, it's making much less difference to the bike dynamically. So again, just more consistent balance, control, and calmness. It's just mentally a really quiet, rewarding, relaxing bike to ride. Even if you've been a dumbass and forgotten your knee pads, it encourages you to just push that bit harder, lean that bit steeper, brake a little later, all the way around the trail. And then that balance will even get you nicely up climbing corners that have been doing your head in for several months. It really is superbly balanced bike. Now, this EX8, and the more I'm riding it, the more I'm appreciating that. And also, interestingly, the more I'm not noticing that weight. because the rollover and smooth kind of flow actually hides it really, really well. Even on janky stuff like this. And while I think this is a great example, in fact one of the best examples of the modern mid-travel exercise bike, if you think modern trail bikes should come with a motor, then you'd be glad to hear the Fuel Plus is basically exactly this bike with the same Elite TQ motor as the Yeti MTE I reviewed recently, but at a much lower price category, certainly for the aluminium models. And again, you know, this Fuel EX is available at a really broad range of prices, starting with the EX5 up to the full bling 9.9, and that includes RockShox, Fox, Shimano and SRAM builds, as well as those Project One options. Although you have to pay a bit more for the 9 or above if you're wanting to get on the MX or LX programs. And don't forget, when you're checking those prices, that's when you're getting it from a proper shop as well. So not just getting it dropped on your doorstep from an online seller, which is a big bonus in terms of servicing and setup support, plus any other perks they want to throw in. And while progression is the only thing you can easily change by flipping the chip at the bottom of the shock, I'm actually finding, even with a basic setup, it's pretty much spot on, just bottoming out and adding support when I need it to, whether that's off drops or pushing hard out of turns and berms. For a bike this big, it's still got some pop and play when things get tight, twisty and acrobatic. So, while it's only been a couple of days for me on this new fuel, it really is stoking my thirst to get bigger and sendier, and I can't wait to see what it gets up to in the longer travel, and particularly the mullet options. So there we go, that's my first week review of the new Trek Fuel EX8, a bike that I started off the week worried about the weight and where it really placed in the world of the modern trail bike, and ended up sending and sliding tyres on like a 17-year-old. It really has impressed me. The more I've ridden it and the more I've pushed it, the more the little incremental changes to this frame, to the suspension and the development of this very long running trail bike family now just translates to the trail super well in terms of balance, control, and just basically creating a brilliant all-rounder. And the fact that you've got a lot more practical details built into it, even if they're only small ones, makes a big difference. And then the fact that it's cheaper than its predecessor, and even cheaper currently than you can buy its predecessor now, that really stands out, especially when you're seeing bikes like the Specialized Stump Jumper already being significantly reduced to try and shift them, because they've come in and kind of, you know, smacked head on into existing bikes that people are trying to blow out in the marketplace. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to see whether Trek have that issue with the Fuel EX. But certainly in terms of their starting pricing, I can't see that being a major problem. Plus, the spec you get on the bike is properly modern and really well tailored to the kind of riding that most people are doing on it.
except perhaps you might want, as I was finding out towards the end of this test, a stickier front tyre than that Brevard Pro. That's what they call it. I'd forgotten the name, but it's a Brevard Pro. But I mean, just looking at the lines and the little detailing on it, whether it's the armour or how well put together this alloy frame is, the increased storage. I mean, that's something I'll go into on a lot more detail on the workshop talk round, which is what I'm going to go and shoot next. But I think in terms of ride quality, this really is a proper standout bike, and it sits really well in terms of travel capability, and even not much more weight, certainly as a frame set, than the Trek Top Fuel that I've been raving about for over a year now. They really have got a very, very good, versatile two-bike exercise bike range. And with that Fuel Plus coming in as an option as well tomorrow, that gives them this kind of versatility in the lightweight, low-powered spectrum as well. So look out for reviews and workshop talk rounds on that bike as soon as there's availability on that, which will be interesting. It'll be interesting. I think I might use that as the platform for exploring all the bigger travel changes as well, because, you know, that's where having a motor and being able to self-uplift really comes in extra handy. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed watching me kind of learn my way around the bike and getting into just how well it can ride. Please subscribe, click for notifications, give us a thumbs up, like if you've enjoyed it. Most of all, tell your mates, because if you've enjoyed watching this, then hopefully they will too. And if you really like the channel and want to sponsor it long term, you can pledge through YouTube now or join my Patreon channel, where you'll get early, exclusive and ad-free edits as a thank you.